There comes a moment in every life when the world feels loud, unruly, and untamed, when people, seasons, and circumstances move in directions we never asked for. And in that moment, we are tempted to grab at life with both hands, to force it into obedience, to make it bend to our will. But peace, my friends, does not come from gripping life tightly. It comes from learning the gentle art of release. It comes from understanding that the sun rises without our permission, the rain falls without our consent, and yet both nourish the earth all the same. Today, I want to walk with you into that sacred space where acceptance becomes freedom, where surrender becomes strength, and where your spirit finally learns to rest, even when the world around you does not. There comes a time when the soul must decide whether it will keep fighting the tides or learn to float upon them. We spend so much of our precious energy wrestling with things that have no intention of moving for us. People who will not become kinder just because we wish they would. Situations that refuse to soften no matter how much we push. Seasons that arrive early, stay too long, or change without our permission. And in all this struggling, we forget to breathe. We forget that peace is not won by overpowering life, but by learning to stand beside it, unthreatened, unburdened, and unafraid. Acceptance is not surrender, it is understanding. It is realizing that the world was never meant to be shaped entirely by our hands. Some things come to teach us, some to test us, and some simply to pass through our lives like a breeze we were never meant to catch. When we stop gripping everything so tightly, we make room for clarity to rise. We make room for wisdom to whisper. And in that quiet moment, we begin to see the difference between what is ours to hold and what is only ours to witness. There is a quiet kind of freedom that blooms the moment we stop demanding life to be different from what it is. It does not come with grand fireworks or loud celebration. It comes softly, like the dawn pulling its first line of light across the sky. Acceptance teaches us that peace is not a prize waiting beyond the storm. It is the calm we build within ourselves while the storm still rages. It is the gentle decision to no longer let external chaos dictate the temperature of our inner world. Many people mistake acceptance for weakness. They believe that if they stop fighting something, it means they have lost. But there is no victory in wrestling a mountain. The mountain will stand whether we push against it or not. The real victory is found in conserving our strength for the paths we can climb, the dreams we can shape, and the choices that truly belong to us. When we accept what cannot be changed, we reclaim the energy to transform what can. Think of the moments in your own life when you tried to force something to work, a relationship, an opportunity, a version of yourself you had outgrown. Think of how heavy it felt, how exhausting it was to keep pushing a door that was never meant to open. And now imagine what might have happened if, instead of pushing, you had paused. If you had stepped back, opened your hands, and allowed life to redirect you toward a door made just for you. Acceptance is not the end of effort, it is the beginning of wisdom. It is choosing peace over panic, clarity over chaos, and direction over desperation. It is the moment you reclaim your freedom by releasing what was never in your control to begin with. And it is in that release that your spirit finally stops fighting and starts rising. There is a quiet truth many people learn too late. The soul was not built to live in a constant state of battle, yet so many of us move through life as if every hour demands armor, as if every moment requires us to brace ourselves for impact. We fight circumstances we cannot influence. We wrestle emotions we never fully understand. And we chase after versions of life that were never ours to claim. And in doing so, we drain our own spirit dry. But the spirit was meant to breathe, to expand, to rest. It was never meant to be a warrior every waking second. There is strength in fighting, yes, but there is wisdom in knowing when to step back, unclench your jaw, release your shoulders, and simply let things be. Rest is not a luxury reserved for the fortunate. Rest is a right, a birthright, a necessity woven into the fabric of our being. When you deny yourself rest, you deny yourself clarity, you deny yourself joy, you deny yourself the chance to heal from what life has placed upon your path. Some people grow so accustomed to carrying every burden, every expectation, every disappointment, that they forget what it feels like to be light. They forget that breathing deeply is something they are allowed to do. They forget that the world will not fall apart just because they choose to put their load down for a moment. But your spirit remembers, even when you don't. Your spirit quietly calls you back to softness, to silence, to stillness. It aches for release the way a tired heart aches for comfort. And when you ignore that call long enough, life has its own way of reminding you. Sometimes it comes as exhaustion, sometimes as sadness you cannot name, sometimes as a heaviness you cannot shake. Because resistance, when carried for too long, becomes a weight that presses against every corner of your being. The truth is, not everything in life is meant to be confronted. Not every situation requires your intervention. Some things are simply meant to pass, to unfold in their own rhythm, without you forcing them into shape. When you resist what life is trying to naturally move through, you create friction where there could have been flow. You create pain where there could have been peace. Letting go is not failure, it is alignment. It is allowing the currents of life to carry what was never yours to manage in the first place. Imagine your spirit as a room filled with light. Every unnecessary battle you take on dims that light just a little. Every moment you overextend yourself, every time you believe you must handle everything alone, you draw the curtains tighter. But when you choose rest, real rest, not avoidance, not distraction, but intentional stillness, the curtains begin to open again. Your light begins to return. You begin to see clearly what is meant for you and what is not. There is deep courage in choosing rest. It takes bravery to say, "This is not mine to carry." It takes strength to step away from the noise and choose peace instead of constant proving. But your spirit will thank you. It will rise again. It will breathe again. And in that space of gentle surrender, you will finally understand that life was never asking you to carry the world, only to carry yourself with care. There is a gentle beauty in understanding that life moves with or without our permission. We often grow up believing that if we work hard enough, push long enough, or hold on tightly enough, everything will bend in our favor. But life has its own seasons, its own rhythms, its own wisdom that stretches far beyond our plans. The more we try to force life into the shape we want, the more it resists us. It is like trying to cup water in closed fists. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. But when your hands open, when your spirit loosens, when you allow life to move as it naturally intends, you discover a kind of grace that cannot be found through force. Letting life flow doesn't mean standing still and accepting anything that comes your way. It means walking with awareness, with presence, with openness. It means allowing space for unexpected blessings, for unforeseen directions, for opportunities that are not written on your list, but arrive to change your life nonetheless. When we cling too tightly to one idea of how things should be, we close the door on the countless ways life could surprise us. We limit what could have been ours simply because we were too focused on what we thought we wanted. Grace appears in the spaces where we stop fighting. It shows up in quiet moments, when we take a breath instead of reacting, when we listen instead of insisting, when we allow circumstances to unfold rather than trying to push them into place. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step aside and allow life to reveal its plan, not because you are giving up, but because you are finally trusting that everything does not need your constant management to work out. There is profound strength in choosing trust. It requires courage to believe that the path ahead, even if unseen, holds something meaningful for you. It requires faith to release the need to orchestrate every detail. And it requires humility to accept that you don't always know what timing is best. Life often delays what we want because it is preparing something deeper, quieter, and wiser than our imagination could produce. When you let things flow, you make room for that wisdom to guide you. Think about the moments when life surprised you, a person you met by accident, an opportunity that came from nowhere, a change you never expected but somehow needed. None of those things were forced. They arrived naturally in their own time, with their own purpose, and if you had pushed too hard in another direction, you might have missed them entirely. Flow has a way of delivering what force never can. Letting life flow teaches you to respond instead of react. It teaches you to observe without panic, to breathe through the unknown, to trust the process even when you don't understand it. When you live in flow, you walk with a softer heart. You worry less about controlling outcomes and more about being present for the journey. You become someone who moves with life rather than against it. And when you finally release the urge to control every twist and turn, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel lighter. You begin to feel guided. You begin to recognize that grace was never absent. It was simply waiting for you to stop forcing your way through the world. Grace rises the moment you surrender the belief that you must manage everything. It rises when you allow life to unfold in its own beautiful, mysterious, and perfectly timed way. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that no matter how tightly they hold on, some storms will come anyway. You cannot negotiate with thunder. You cannot reason with the wind. You cannot ask the rain to fall more gently simply because your heart feels fragile. Life will arrive in waves you did not summon, with lessons you did not request, and with changes you never planned for. But just because you cannot quiet the storm outside does not mean you are powerless. Your greatest strength lies in calming the storm within, in finding a steady ground inside yourself while everything around you shakes and shifts. Inner calm is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is something you build patiently, choice by choice. It begins when you decide that you will no longer let external chaos decide the quality of your life. It grows when you choose to breathe slowly, even when your circumstances feel fast and overwhelming. It expands when you choose clarity over panic, intention over impulse, and peace over noise. The world around you may be trembling, but you can learn to stand in the middle of it with a heart that does not collapse. Storms will test you. They will pull at the edges of your patience, your confidence, your sense of direction, but they will also reveal what you are made of. They will show you the strength you didn't know you carried. They will show you that calm is not a denial of difficulty. It is the refusal to drown in it. It is the understanding that your mind, your breath, your reactions, and your focus belong to you, no matter how chaotic the environment becomes. You may not be able to control the noise outside, but you can control what you amplify inside. There is a quiet power in choosing stillness. Stillness does not mean you stop moving forward. It does not mean you ignore problems or pretend everything is perfect. Stillness means you pause long enough to see clearly. It means you give yourself space to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting out of fear. It means you anchor yourself to truth rather than emotion, to patience rather than panic. The storm may swirl around you, but stillness becomes your shelter. Think about how many times in your life you believed that everything was falling apart, only to later realize that you survived it, grew from it, and even became stronger because of it. Those moments were not conquered by force. They were conquered by endurance, by grounding, by breathing through the fear, by reminding yourself that the storm would pass and you would still be standing. That same strength exists within you now, even if you cannot feel it yet. Learning to calm yourself is not a single achievement. It is a lifelong practice. Some days you will manage it with grace. Other days you will stumble. But every day you try, you reclaim a little more of your power. And eventually, you begin to understand something deeply liberating. The storm was never yours to control, but your peace always was. Life has a way of arriving without warning. A conversation turns sharp. a plan unravels, a person disappoints you in a way you never expected. In those moments, the first impulse is often to react, quickly, emotionally, instinctively. Reactions burst out from the rawest part of us, the part still learning, still afraid, still wounded. But reactions rarely guide us where we want to go. They come from the storm inside, not the clarity within. Responses, however, come from a steadier place. They come from understanding, patience, and perspective. And the difference between reacting and responding can completely reshape the direction of your life. When you choose to respond rather than react, you give yourself the gift of time, even if it is only a breath. In that breath, you step back from the heat of the moment. You look at the situation not through the blur of emotion, but through the lens of intention. You ask yourself what outcome you truly want. You ask yourself whether your next words will build or break, soothe or sharpen, move you forward, or pull you into a deeper conflict. Reactions may be quick, but responses are wise. And wisdom requires space. You cannot control the winds of life, the sudden changes, the unexpected challenges, the behavior of others, the twists that catch you off guard. But you can decide how you adjust your sail. You can choose the direction of your energy. You can choose which thoughts you feed and which ones you release. You can choose whether you let the situation destabilize you or whether you use it to practice stability. People often forget that peace is not the absence of difficulty. It is the mastery of self in the presence of it. There will be times when your emotions rise fast and hard, when your instincts tell you to strike back or defend yourself or prove your point. It is in those moments that your sail matters most. A calm mind can navigate even the roughest waters, while a reactive mind can turn a small wave into a sinking ship. When you respond instead of react, you gain control over the only thing that ever truly belonged to you, your own behavior. You reclaim your power by refusing to hand it over to the situation or the person in front of you. Think about how many conflicts in your life could have been softened, shortened, or avoided altogether if you had paused for just a moment before speaking or acting. Think about how many misunderstandings grew simply because emotions moved faster than clarity. And then imagine how different things could have been if you had adjusted your sail instead of letting the wind toss you around. That difference is not magic, it is choice. Choosing response over reaction is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about guiding them. It is about letting your emotions speak, but not letting them drive. It is understanding that you are not a puppet of circumstance. You are a participant, a contributor, a decision maker in the story of your own life. And when you learn to respond with intention, you begin to move through the world with a quiet confidence. You stop being pulled by every strong wind, and you start steering by your own inner compass. In time, you will see that adjusting your sail is not just a skill. It is a form of self-respect. It is choosing your peace over impulse, your future over your frustration, your wisdom over your wounds. You may never control the winds, but you will always control the direction you choose to go. There comes a point when you realize that much of the stress you carry comes from running after things that were never meant to be held. Approval, certainty, perfection, and promises from people who cannot even keep promises to themselves. These are the things we chase, believing they will make us whole. But chasing keeps you tired. Chasing keeps you distracted. Chasing keeps you locked in a life that is always one step ahead of your reach. And eventually, you discover that while chasing gives you motion, it never gives you power. Your power has always lived in what you can build, not in what you pursue desperately. When you focus on creation, something inside you shifts. You stop measuring your worth by what slips away from you and start measuring it by what is in your hands. You begin to see that every small effort, every consistent step, every quiet improvement is a foundation for something real. Building, unlike chasing, gives you ground to stand on. It gives you roots. It gives you a sense of direction that does not depend on someone else's permission or participation. Building invites you into a life where progress is steady, where purpose grows slowly and steadily like a seed you water day after day. Control, on the other hand, is a mirage. We spend years trying to control outcomes, control people, control timing, control every twist and turn in our path. But the truth reveals itself eventually. The more you try to control life, the more it slips through your fingers. Control is fear, pretending to be strength. Creation is strength, refusing to bow to fear. When you shift your energy from controlling to creating, you move from tightness to openness, from anxiety to possibility. You stop fixating on what might happen and start investing in what you can make happen. There is a deep peace in building something with your own hands, your own choices, your own effort. It may be a new habit, a healthier mindset, a better boundary, a business, a craft, or even a new version of yourself. These are things no one can take from you because they were shaped by your determination, your discipline, your heart. When you build, you operate from a place of ownership, not over the world, but over your journey. You begin to trust that progress is more valuable than perfection, and that forward motion matters more than speed. Think of all the times you chased something that never gave you what you hoped for, the validation that didn't heal you, the relationship that didn't respect you, the opportunity that wasn't aligned with who you were becoming. Now imagine if that same energy had been poured into something lasting, something meaningful, something you could grow rather than chase. Life feels different when your energy is spent on creation instead of pursuit. It feels fuller, steadier, and far more honest. Your power has always lived in what you can shape. Your choices, your habits, your voice, your skills, your dreams, your responses, your character. These are the things that grow with you, evolve with you, and reward you in ways that chasing never could. When you focus on building, the world no longer feels like something you must outrun. It becomes something you can contribute to, something you can participate in with clarity and purpose. In the end, power is not found in grabbing or grasping. Power is found in planting, in creating, in tending to what is yours. And the moment you realize this, the chase ends and your true life begins. There are moments in life when you look at a situation or a person or a past version of yourself and you realize that no amount of wishing, no amount of replaying, no amount of effort can rewrite what has already happened. You cannot go back in time and change choices, remove pain, or alter someone else's heart. And holding on to resentment, regret, or disappointment becomes like carrying a stone in your pocket. It weighs you down even when you believe you've forgotten it's there. Forgiveness is not about saying the past was acceptable. It is about deciding that the past will no longer control the direction of your future. Forgiving what you cannot fix is one of the hardest lessons you will ever learn. It asks you to let go of questions that may never be answered. It asks you to release stories you've told yourself over and over again. It asks you to loosen your grip on the idea that life owed you a different outcome. But the truth is, holding on does not change anything. It does not give you closure. It does not provide peace. It simply keeps you tied to a moment that cannot evolve. Forgiveness, on the other hand, frees your hands so you can build something better. Many people believe that forgiveness is about the other person. They think forgiving means excusing the hurt or minimizing the betrayal. But forgiveness has very little to do with them and everything to do with you. It is choosing not to let bitterness live rent-free in your heart. It is choosing not to let old wounds shape your present decisions. It is choosing to honor yourself enough to release anything that does not help you grow. When you forgive what you cannot fix, you reclaim your emotional space. You make room for peace, for clarity, for hope. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. You may look back at moments where you stayed too long, trusted too deeply, ignored your intuition, or made choices from fear rather than strength. But punishing yourself for who you were then only holds back who you are becoming now. You did the best you could with the understanding you had at the time. Growth means acknowledging your mistakes without letting them define you. Self-forgiveness is not weakness, it is courage. It is choosing to meet your past with compassion rather than condemnation. There will always be things you cannot fix, words you cannot unsay, actions you cannot undo, endings you did not want but were forced to accept. Forgiveness does not remove the memory, but it removes the sting. It softens the edges so that when the memory comes, it no longer cuts you. It becomes something you have learned from rather than something you are trapped inside. Imagine how differently your days would feel if you no longer carried resentment on your shoulders. Imagine what might open up for you if you stopped revisiting old wounds and started investing that energy into your future. Forgiveness gives you that possibility. It does not erase the past, but it loosens its hold. It allows you to step forward without dragging chains behind you. In the end, forgiveness is not a single act, but a continuous practice. Some days you may feel healed, and the next day the old pain may stir again. That is normal. Healing is not linear, but every time you choose release over resentment, you lighten your load. Every time you choose peace over punishment, you soften another corner of your heart. And slowly, quietly, forgiveness reshapes you into someone freer, stronger, and more open to the life waiting ahead. There is a part of the human heart that clings tightly to yesterday, as if holding on long enough will somehow change what has already been lived. We replay conversations in our minds, rehearsing what we should have said. We revisit choices we no longer have the chance to redo. We return to moments we wish had unfolded differently, hoping that imagining a new version might bring relief. But yesterday is a place that never opens its doors again. No amount of revisiting can alter what has already happened. When you try to rewrite the past, you trap your spirit in a loop that has no exit. Peace enters your life the moment you stop trying to edit a chapter that has already been printed. Letting go of yesterday is not forgetting. It is understanding that memory and possibility cannot live in the same breath. When you cling to what has passed, you leave no space for what could be. Your heart becomes crowded with old stories, and your vision becomes blurred by scenes that no longer need your attention. But when you release the past, you make room inside yourself for renewal. You create the emotional space needed for new relationships, new lessons, and new versions of strength to grow. Releasing yesterday is an act of trust, a quiet belief that what is ahead of you can be better than what is behind. Many people fear letting go because the past is familiar. Even pain can feel familiar if you've held it for long enough. But familiarity is not the same as fulfillment. The past may feel safe because it is known, but it cannot nourish you forever. It is like trying to live on memories instead of meals. You will weaken yourself while believing you are being sentimental. Life moves forward whether you move with it or not, and there is a gentle dignity in choosing to walk with life rather than remain anchored to a time that no longer exists. Some memories are heavy. Some regrets echo loudly. Some losses feel like they have carved permanent spaces in your heart. Letting go does not mean those things suddenly stop mattering. It means you choose not to let them rule the rest of your story. It means you honor what happened, learn from it, and continue onward with the understanding that your journey is not meant to end in a place of old hurt. Peace cannot rise inside you if your heart is always turned backward. You deserve to face forward. Think of how the sun rises every day without waiting for you to finish revisiting the darkness of last night. The world wakes no matter how you feel, offering a new chance, a new beginning, a new path. Tomorrow does not require you to be perfect. It only asks that you are willing to step into it. And the weight of yesterday becomes lighter once you realize that you are not obligated to carry it into another sunrise. When you finally stop trying to rewrite yesterday, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel present again. You begin to notice small joys that went unseen. You begin to rediscover your energy. And slowly, you reclaim the parts of yourself that were stuck in old memories. Releasing the past does not erase what you have lived. It simply gives you permission to live what comes next. Peace grows in you the moment you stop resisting the finality of yesterday. That is the moment tomorrow becomes possible. There comes a point in your journey when you realize that not every problem laid at your feet is yours to solve. People will bring you their frustrations, their chaos, their fears, and their unfinished storms, expecting you to become the shelter they never learned to build for themselves. Life will tug at you from every direction, asking you to stretch a little more, give a little more, endure a little more. And if you are not careful, you will find yourself overflowing with stress that never belonged to you in the first place. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks, and you have every right to decide who enters and how far they are allowed to go. Honoring your boundaries begins with understanding your own limits. It means recognizing when your spirit feels overwhelmed, when your patience feels thin, when your peace starts slipping through the cracks. Many people ignore these inner signals because they fear disappointing others or being seen as selfish. But ignoring your limits does not make you generous, it makes you exhausted. You cannot pour from a cup you keep letting other people drain. Your well-being is not a resource for anyone to take without permission. There will always be situations that try to push you past your limits. Some people test your kindness because they assume you will never say no. Some circumstances demand more of you than you have the capacity to give. And life itself can become a whirlwind of responsibilities, obligations, and expectations that seem to expand without warning. But boundaries exist so you can protect the parts of yourself that keep you whole. When you don't set them, life will take as much as you allow, sometimes without meaning to, sometimes without even noticing. Saying no is not an act of coldness. It is an act of clarity. It is choosing your well-being over unnecessary chaos. It is recognizing that you cannot fight every battle, fix every situation, or rescue every person who calls out. You were never meant to be the savior of every storm. Some storms belong to others, and stepping into them only pulls you into confusion that was never yours. Honoring your boundaries helps you walk away from emotional weather that would only leave you drenched and tired. Think of how many times you agreed to something you didn't want to do simply because you felt obligated. Think of how often you stretched yourself thin just to maintain peace in places where peace was never your responsibility. Those moments are not signs of strength. They are signs that your boundaries were ignored. And when you ignore your boundaries long enough, resentment begins to grow. You start feeling drained by the very things and people you once cared for. Boundaries are the antidote to that hidden bitterness. They allow you to give from a place of fullness instead of depletion. Protecting your energy is not an invitation to shut the world out. It is an invitation to welcome only what supports your growth, your balance, and your well-being. It means choosing environments that nourish your mind and people who respect your space. It means refusing to internalize every opinion, every demand, every emotional storm that passes near you. When your boundaries are strong, your peace becomes steady. When your boundaries are clear, your relationships become healthier. And when your boundaries are honored, your life becomes your own again. In the end, boundaries are not about keeping others away. They are about keeping yourself intact. They remind you that your energy is precious, your time is valuable, and your spirit deserves protection. And when life has no boundaries of its own, yours become essential. They become the quiet structure that helps you stay grounded, centered, and whole in a world that will always ask for more than you can give. There are seasons in life when everything around you seems to demand motion. People urge you to hurry, decisions press on you, circumstances tighten, and the world moves fast enough to make you feel like you're falling behind if you pause even for a moment. In those moments, stillness can feel uncomfortable, even wrong. It can feel like you're not doing enough, not trying enough, not proving enough. But the truth is, stillness is not a sign that you are giving up. It is a sign that you are stepping into clarity. It is a quiet strength that many people overlook because the world teaches us to value noise over wisdom and speed over stability. Stillness gives you the space to hear your own thoughts without the interference of fear or urgency. It allows you to separate what is truly your responsibility from what is simply demanding your attention. When life becomes overwhelming, your instinct might be to act quickly, to fix things instantly, or to make decisions just to escape the pressure of uncertainty. But rushing rarely leads you where you need to be. Stillness helps you see the situation as it is, not as your anxiety paints it. It allows your mind to slow down so your judgment can sharpen. It takes courage to be still in a world that expects constant motion. It takes strength to remain grounded when everything around you feels unstable. People often mistake stillness for inaction, but stillness is a decision. It is the choice to respond from a place of understanding rather than fear. It is the choice to gather your energy rather than scatter it. It is the choice to remain centered even when your circumstances try to pull you in 100 different directions. There is nothing weak about choosing to breathe before you speak, pause before you act, or reflect before you move. In stillness, you also reconnect with parts of yourself you may have neglected. The parts that hold your intuition, your inner voice, your quiet confidence. When life is loud, those parts get buried beneath distraction. But when you allow yourself a moment of silence, real silence, you begin to hear again. You begin to remember who you are beneath the stress, beneath the expectations, beneath the pressure to keep going. You remember that your worth is not measured by constant productivity. It is measured by how aligned you feel with yourself. Stillness teaches you that strength doesn't always look like pushing forward. Sometimes strength looks like waiting. Sometimes it looks like observing. Sometimes it means letting the situation settle before you decide your next step. When water is stirred, it becomes cloudy. When it sits still, it becomes clear. The same is true for the mind. Clarity rarely comes in chaos. It comes in the pauses between the chaos. There will be times when stillness feels like the hardest thing to choose. Your emotions may urge you to react, your fears may push you toward panic, and your doubts may whisper that you're falling behind. But if you can hold that stillness just a little longer, you will feel something shift inside you. Your heartbeat steadies, your breath deepens, your mind unravels its knots, and slowly, the answers you couldn't see before begin to reveal themselves. Stillness is not a retreat from life, it is preparation for it. It is gathering your strength so that when you move with intention. It is calming your spirit so that when you speak with clarity. It is settling your mind so that when you act with direction, not desperation. And in that stillness, you rediscover your resilience, your wisdom, and your ability to rise, not in panic, but in purpose.